So I guess
Ollie,
I'm
yeah.
on my own. Ah, there you are.
No, just got you there. Yeah, some strange, again, gremlins in the work. I had a big black screen on your side. But anyway, there we go. One day this will work out excellently and we'll have a smooth introduction. All I had was a big black screen your side. Anyway, let's get rocking and rolling with this. So coming up tonight on, you know by now, Colombia's only live and interactive English language chat show, it's all about food. Glorious or not so glorious food, our juicy topic in the second half of the program. Not everybody equates Colombian cuisine with quality, but both Ollie and I have our likes and, of course, our dislikes. What is your must-eat Colombian dish? What would you not give to your worst enemy? Let us know by using the live comment facility, or if you're watching this not live, you can send us a message via the medium on which you're viewing us, or send a tweet to @Bogotá. Before all that, as we always do, it's our news roundup. The increasingly problematic area of applying for Colombian visas and such like has been a hot topic over the last 7 days. We'll discuss all that shortly, as well as the return of international football to Colombia, with a few big days coming up for La Selección. But first, Ollie, politics in this country is a bit of a minefield, to say the least, and having ex-guerrilleros operating in the legitimate affairs of the state was always going to be a bit of a problem. Can you give us an easy to understand version of what's been happening over the last few days?
Well, I think you're referring here to Alvaro Gomez Hurtado and his execution at the hands of the FARC, or maybe not. And this is a bit of a confusing one, Brendan, because part of the HEP, the Special Protest for Peace, part of the point of that was to encourage openness and honesty, and people have been given amnesty in order to speak openly. Now that they have, in the first kind of major truth-telling by the FARC, they've admitted, or we need to be careful on this, they've said they were responsible for the murder of Alvaro Hurtado Gomez in 1995. Now, no sooner had they admitted their responsibility than pretty much every political figure in Colombia started to say they either believed implicitly or didn't believe at all that confession. Ivan Duque has gone on record to say he doesn't trust this confession, that it's very suspicious that they're saying this now they know they have amnesty. Maybe that's not to be, maybe that's nothing to be surprised about, given his attitude towards the HEP. Then we've got people like Santos saying, isn't this a great sign that the HEP is doing exactly what we wanted it to do? The family of Hurtado Gomez have gone on record saying they don't think this is true. It's just an attempt to whitewash things for a former presidential candidate. Why the FARC would want to do that is sorry, a former president. Why the FARC would want to do that is not quite clear. Why the FARC really would have wanted to kill Hurtado Gomez isn't entirely clear. It appears to be they potentially think he might have been behind the operation to attack Marquetalia back in the 60s. But again, to wait 30 years before killing him, and then to wait another 30, well, 25 to confess it, everything does seem very odd. As ever in Colombia, Brendan, who knows?
Yeah, I'm a bit confused as well in all of that when you're explaining it. I thought you were giving me the easy to understand version, but now I'm even more confused.
Well, I mean, look, I mean, it's easy enough to find out what the statements are. The real tricky bit is working out what, if any of this is true. It just doesn't seem to make, you know, everything seems to be suspicious, whichever way you look at it. And I think that's one of the things that often frustrates me about living in Colombia. And I think for all of us at the Bogotá Post, as journalists, it's incredibly frustrating trying to get, which it is in any country to a degree, but Colombia seems to have a special level of frustratingness. And of course, things that we would often dismiss as wild conspiracy theories often have an edge of truth in them when we talk about Colombia. It's not that long ago that we had the falsos positivos. You know, the memory of that kind of does make you think, well, what is going on behind closed doors? So it's hard to know.
Well, you mentioned falsos positivos. There has been news today that the Fiscalia has asked for Uribe's, Alvaro Uribe, ex-president Alvaro Uribe's release from his very difficult house arrest. Now, I know it's easy to kind of judge when people say, well, he's under house arrest with 120 hectares or whatever he has in his finca up near the coast. But I'm sure there are some liberties that he can't enjoy.
Well, it's still house arrest, isn't it? I mean, whatever way you look at it, he's still deprived of his liberty in a way, yeah. Yeah.
So, well, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that, if that actually it's in the hands of the judge who's responsible for it. But that's an ongoing saga. Will we ever see the end of that as well?
I don't know. I mean, there are lots of anti-Uribistas, obviously, that I know. They all got incredibly happy a few weeks ago. My point on this was simply, you know, this is the sort of news that we've been listening to again and again and again about Alvaro Uribe. He's definitely going down this time. It's definitely the silver bullet, blah, blah, blah. And it never has been. And I wonder what we think is different about this case.
Yeah, I guess. Well, time shall tell, as ever in these things. You mentioned conspiracy theories there earlier on. Some people are thinking that there's a campaign system. Yeah.
What I meant was there's a lot of things that I would dismiss as conspiracy theories in other countries that I take rather more seriously in Colombia, given what we now know about certain things.
Exactly. Well, I was kind of now using that to move into what some people are wondering. Is there a systematic campaign to keep a few foreigners out of this country? Because in the last few weeks and months, it seems, in any case, if you're reading Facebook groups of foreigners here and different things, it's become increasingly difficult to get visas or even residency for people who actually meet the conditions or thought they had met the conditions. There's a lot going on down around Migración and La Cancillería. Now, of course, there are two different entities, just for people who maybe aren't 100% sure, who might be new to Colombia. La Cancillería deals with visa applications, and then Migración is where you go to register said visa if you get it.
Which is a part of the Cancillería, in fact.
Yeah, but you know, like you do. If you're doing the application, you do one with La Cancillería. I would have thought, all under the kind of same roof. And I wonder how much collaboration there is between the two entities.
Oh no, that's surprisingly limited. I've always been struck by I don't understand why I have to register my visa with Migración Colombia. I just can't understand how they don't have a system. Now I wonder if that's to do with the genesis of Migración Colombia when DAS fell to pieces. And, you know, people were obviously a little bit worried about data sharing. But yeah, I can't understand why a new visa just isn't immediately passed on to Migración Colombia internally. It just seems bizarre not to do that.
Yeah, and we've spoken before about visas and Migración and things like that here before, and saying how, compared to what I know about other countries, and I include my own country in this, the process seems pretty smooth in many ways when you have everything correct, I guess. But it's just a lot of people seem to be tripping up on certain things of late. Now, of course, we had the high-profile case, and we mentioned a little bit about this last week. We didn't know all the ins and outs. We know a little bit more now of this Dominic Wolf, who's a well-known influencer here. And he applied for residency, but he just didn't meet the conditions. You're meant to have 5 years of visas. Now that's not 5 consecutive visas. It just depends. It could be 2 visas, but as long as it's 5 years of visas, he didn't meet those requirements. But of course, he managed. Well, I was talking to somebody else about this earlier. It's kind of interesting. It looks as if he's getting special treatment, but in effect, he may not be at all, because he would have been allowed into the country anyway as a tourist, and that's effectively, they said, oh, well, you can come in and sort out your issues, but that's what's going, he would have been able to do that anyway, come into the country as a tourist.
Well, okay, yeah, oh yes, of course he would, yeah. Although, I mean, how long is he? Actually, I don't really want to get into the nuts and bolts of this.
Yeah.
But
what I would say is that there might have been the risk that he would lose his continuity of visas. Of course, which is the hardest part to get residency, to have that unbroken chain of visas. So maybe they're going to allow for that. It certainly got the nation talking at the time. But there's been, as I said, a whole host of other cases. Now, somebody said to me, I don't know if you'd agree with this, that perhaps there's been some directive going out that, like, we're in this pandemic at the moment. We need to protect Colombians first. So, certain foreigners, we're going to make it more difficult for them to stay anyway. I don't know, do I believe that or not?
No, well, I mean, that's actually not, I mean, I don't, again, coming back to this sort of conspiracy theory thinking, now that to me wouldn't seem like a particularly odd thing for any government to do. It would be popular. I mean, I guess what strikes me as a little bit odd about this whole thing is that, from what I gather reading kind of, comments from people on groups and things like that, I get the feeling, actually, Brendan, that they're denying kind of investment visas and retirement visas and things like that, which seems to me odd. I get the idea of denying work visas. Some people are saying that they've been given an instruction just to deny visas on whatever grounds they can across the board. Again, that sounds like it would be ridiculous. It does seem to be what's going on. People are, reporting problems with spouse visas, matrimonial visas, which, they were pretty cast iron before. I guess the big one will be, if we can find somebody who's applying for a familial visa, a conjugal visa, on the basis that they are the parent of Colombian children. Now, if they get denied residency, then things really have changed, because that was always the visa that was nailed on. I mean, short of commit a major crime, there's no way you would not get that visa. And when I say a major crime, I mean kind of murder or child abuse. I don't mean something like corruption or fraud. I think you would be fine on that. They really, that was the visa that they always gave. Let's see. I mean, I think it's interesting, Brendan. So just very quickly, I wonder if there's a bit of a subtext here to do with Latin immigration, specifically from Venezuela, because this ties in with having the borders, the land borders, the river borders, and the marine borders, which are the borders that tend to get used more by Colombia's neighbors than by sort of rich world tourists, let's say. And I think they've been kept closed until November. I wonder if these two things in some way tie together, which again is odd, because Duque's government, however much we may criticize them for many other things, have been absolutely exemplary in many ways with their attitude towards Venezuelan migration. And that's been unpopular, but to be fair to Duque, he's stuck with it. He's continued accepting migrants. He's continued to fund them from the public purse, and that's had quite a severe impact on Colombia's budget. So it strikes me as odd that they would suddenly sort of present a xenophobic sort of attitude towards visas. Odd, very odd.
Yeah, well, I mean, to read between the lines, and a cynic might say that they realized they couldn't target one specific nationality.
Exactly.
So yeah, just throw the bomb out there and take everyone down with them. Anyway, that's obviously a lot of speculation. In terms of the getting a visa for a child, there will be one case, so I'll keep you updated on that. An Irish friend
Are
of
you
mine.
pregnant?
No, not that I know of. Although I have been. No, I won't go into that. I was going to say an Irish friend and his American wife. So two foreigners here have had a Colombian baby. So they're in the process now of looking for their residency. So we should have an answer to that, within the next few weeks. You mentioned investment visas. Bill Clinton apparently has been talking up the investment opportunities of Colombia. So if he doesn't get an investment visa, we're all in trouble, I guess. Were you following what he said, or what exactly was he saying?
Well, to be fair, this was an event that took place in the United States, because one does get the feeling that the likes of Bill Clinton much prefer to talk about Colombia from the comfort of their own home rather than coming down to the comfort of a hotel in Cartagena or something. Anyway, Bill Clinton's highlighting Colombia. Of course, he was always, he was always a big funder of aid to Colombia, things like Plan Colombia, the original Plan Colombia with the Clinton list and so forth. So in a way, it's not a surprise to see him getting involved. But he's highlighted Colombia as being a particularly good place for people to invest, especially in terms of communications industry and innovation, renewable energy, and a few other sort of bits and bobs. I think tourism was in there. But he clearly sees a future in the country.
Well, I mean, most of us do if we can stay in it. That's the other thing. We're just trying to get visas. That is the problem. Mentioning though, well, good things to invest in. Is Colombia La Selección a good investment for a win tomorrow? Do you think, Ollie?
Well, on paper, they're obviously going to win. They're a much stronger team, player for player. They absolutely outrank Venezuela. Possible exception of goalkeeper. However, as we have seen time and time again, especially in Barranquilla, especially at home, Colombia don't tend to do very well against Venezuela. Venezuela have a nasty habit of either drawing or snatching last gasp winners against Colombia. So it should be a proper match. Venezuela, to give all the cliches, Venezuela do seem to take inspiration from playing Colombia. They tend to have a little fillip in their stride. It's not dissimilar, I think, to an FA Cup match where you'd see one of the Minos against one of the big boys from the Premier League. Should be an interesting match.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was going to bring another analogy there. It's like when the Republic of Ireland Scotland or Wales playing the old enemy, as they would say. Yeah, Venezuela certainly do. They always rise the game.
Let's not talk about Wales playing England today. That's a bit of a sore subject. A comfortable 3-0 victory for England there. A little bit sad. Anyway, it should be good.
I was going to say, you've a foot in both camps in that one. But in terms of Venezuela, I was just having a quick look. Now, I'm used more to the fractional odds rather than the decimal odds. But they have a draw or a tie, as they'd say in the States, at 4.4. So I guess that's kind of like 4.5 to 1 or something. Which, if you were looking for the value bet, a score draw, which would then you get even better odds because that's just a draw any score. At 4.4. Yeah. Not that I'm encouraging gambling, but if you were just having a fun little bet, that
9 to 2. I would say a 0-0 is always a possibility.
Yeah, and of course it's going to be funny to see it like in the what do they call it? The Metropolitana, that the stadium in Barranquilla, like
the Wanda,
like with nobody there, all this new kind of obviously
I don't. I
new
know
protocols.
that's not that unusual at all, Brendan. I
But
went
not
with
for
a
La
good.
Selección games, though. Surely?
No, God, no, 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 no. Of
Yeah.
course not. No, no. They would always be packed out. Yeah, but I've been to that stadium with a good friend who's quite footy mad. Anyway, we went to watch Barranquilla, and I can't remember who they're playing, Neighbor or Tolima or somebody, and there must have been around 4 or 5 thousand people in a stadium of 60,000, so or 40, 50,000. So yeah, I mean I've seen it with giant ranks of empty seats. It won't look that unusual, I think. What is interesting is, of course, James is coming into this one for the first time in years. He's coming absolutely bang on form. Again at the weekend, another couple of goals, another assist. He's on form, and that could well be the difference.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can say two of the Colombian starters are definitely coming in with their heads held high, I should say, and in great confidence. With Jerry Mina with Everton too, and they're flying it.
Of course,
Not that I'm kind of keeping tabs on all the other Colombian players, but like one thing about the crowd, because I might have mentioned this in previous episodes, there is an Irish connection. The goalkeeping coach for La Selección is an Irishman, a Dubliner, and he at the start of this pandemic was saying to me like, oh, this is kind of probably my last big gig in football. I was looking forward to going to stadiums packed out, with a team that's in the top 10 of the world. And he said, like, I hope that's not going to be the case. And he was still being perhaps optimistic that the Copa America would take place when he was telling me this at the beginning of the year. But now, of course, he will be going out into this eerie enough atmosphere. I think for the players, though, professional, these are the elite of the elite. It's all about a process. You go out and you do the job. But I know you feed off the crowd as well. So it will be a factor, of course. But who will it favor? Like people might say, oh, that'll favor the underdog. But will it? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Will it favor anybody?
Hard to know, is it? I mean, the Colombian national team fans don't seem to get on the backs. If it were in England or somebody, we might, the minute play looks like it's going badly, the fans will get immediately on their backs. That doesn't seem to happen with Colombia. So, yeah, you'd have to say that's probably going to be a disadvantage. And of course, your friend who's the goalkeeping coach, he's got his work cut out with Ospina out.
Exactly.
Yeah, relative unknown coming in.
Yeah, and again, like time that they've had, they would have thought before this, coming into these qualifiers, that they would have had the Copa America and everything, so there were a lot more games. Now it's the same for everybody, so it's a level playing field in that regard. But it will be interesting. Also, I wonder how Caracol are going to play it, because usually they have their presenters surrounded by about 50 people, all close-knit, dancing and doing all these ridiculous things. There's no match analysis at all. It's just what the crowd are doing, dancing around. I don't know how they're going to fill that void for about an hour before kickoff, or 2 hours before kickoff usually.
Yeah, no, that's going to be a more somber tone, isn't it? Although, I don't know how seriously Barranquilla is taking its lockdown.
Well, the thing is, they'll have the cameras of the nation and indeed, well, not exactly the world, but of South America on them. So I think they might have to be on their best behavior. Of course, then is it Tuesday? Monday or Tuesday? It's Chile in Chile.
Much tougher match.
Well, again, as you said, on paper. Obviously, you kind of think 4 points out of this for Colombia, a win tomorrow and a draw in Santiago, and it's fair enough. That'd be kind of minimum requirement. If they get 6 points, excellent. But anything less than 4, I'm guessing, would be a disappointment.
2 wouldn't be the end of the world. They're in trouble if it's 1.
Oh, well, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of football to be played. I mean, you want to be careful of getting to knee-jerk responses at this stage, especially because we might find, Brendan, we've seen in the Premier League, obviously, extraordinary results on Sunday. We've seen that maybe football's in a bit of a weird position at the moment with this pandemic, and how that's going to affect everybody, we don't quite know at the moment. And I mean, certainly the bigger South American clubs that have more players in Europe, they're going to be playing a pretty heavy schedule and then flying around all over the place. We might see a surprise qualifier this year.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Just though you're talking about the Premier League and all the goals we've been having there, my own country was playing this afternoon, and it finished 0-0 after 120 minutes, and then they lost on penalty. So there you go.
In a friendly match.
No, it's a playoff to get to the Euro. Well, what was meant to be Euro 2020 now. Euro 2020 in 2021. But anyway, just a reminder for people, we're going to be talking about food, our favorite and not quite so favorite Colombian foods, coming up in a couple of minutes' time. So if you've any thoughts on that, do get in touch. Or if you're listening to this not pre-recorded, but recorded, as in after the live event, you can get in touch using the Twitter handle at Bogotá Post, or with the message facility on wherever you happen to be watching it. Anything else? The Giro Italia is on, but no real Colombian interest in that one, is there?
Not really, no. I mean, not really much South America. It's a hell of a weird race this time round. Geraint Thomas of Wales, Britain as it is in cycling, fractured his hip, so he's out. Kind of looks like it could be anybody's race at the moment. No clear favourite. We'll see what happens in the next week. Okay.
And your favourite sport of tennis is still going on, but again, no real interest this side of the world.
That one with the name, him.
Yeah. We put money on him, indeed. Are you feeling hungry now? Should we talk about food?
Let's move on.
Yeah. I've been starving all day, keeping myself.
So, I was thinking, Brendan, we should start off with, let's say, some of Colombia's more divisive foods. Now, here in the capital, there's a food that I wouldn't say is particularly exotic, and I don't think it's particularly strange, but it is one that really manages to start a lot of arguments and a lot of debate. And I think you know what I'm talking about. It's that delicious early morning eggs poached in milk changua. Now, I'll lay my cards on the table here. I think changua is fantastic. I think it's a great way to start the day. I think eggs, cheese, and milk is a fantastic combination. It's a great thing, but lots of people don't like it.
Well, exactly. I mean, we were talking about Alvaro Uribe earlier on, and as divisive a figure he is amongst Colombians, I think the changua amongst foreigners here is equally so. It's kind of you either love it or hate it. Say that again.
And among Rolos, I think pretty much everybody in Bogotá has a firm line on changua.
To be honest, most people I speak to, I think, like it. Well, yeah, now that I come to think of it, perhaps not. But,
I'll ask around, see what happens there.
I mean, it does sound weird. If somebody said to me, a few years ago, before I knew of it, like I said, what? Like eggs in milk and cilantro? What is cilantro? How do you?
It's basically coriander.
Coriander, okay. It seems a little bit weird. And some of the more kind of ordinary ones, bog standard ones, don't have cheese in them, which makes them a little bit more watery, I guess. Lacking a bit of. Mm-hmm. But then, of course, you can get them with. I was going to say you can get them with almojábanas, and then there's like a super changua that I had in Paipa. They call it a cazuela, but I mean that's almojábanas and great, like good kind of cheese that when it melts is excellent, like a kind of that lovely kind of stringy cheese. Yeah, that's a super one. But yeah, I do like it now. I know you have another hangover cure breakfast, but for me,
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't
well,
mind the changua for hangover.
yeah, you see, I wouldn't go near a changua on a hangover, Brendan. I mean, it's just too much milk. But I mean, in the same way, I wouldn't particularly have milky tea after a hangover. I think that would that wouldn't be the best idea. Here's another one to throw at you, Brendan. Where do you stand on ants? Hormigas culonas.
Where do I stand on them? On a lot of them. There's these tiny little ants in my house right now. They're invading everything. Yeah, I've had the pleasure, and I will say that, of having the Ormegas, yeah, what you call it,
Culonas.
colones, in Santander, actually, and then I brought them back to Bogota. I actually gave them to a friend of mine in La Perseverancia, a Rolo, who he'd never tried them before, and I thought they were fine. I mean, obviously it looks a bit gross when you see them, but once you put them in your mouth, there's a lot of salt in them, so kind of an almost nutty flavor, like if you were having a bag of nuts. That's what I thought, really. I didn't mind them.
Fantastic drinking food. I mean, I have to say, come around May, June, when it's ant season, I'm into as many Santander tiendas as I can find, picking myself up bags of ants. They are brilliant. Massive fan. Lovely umami flavor, really salty, really sort of chewy and crunchy. Absolutely delicious. Big fan. All right, I've got one final one for you, Brendan, before we move on to our next little segment.
Just before you finish on the ants, you said ant season. Is there an actual season for them?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, very much so. Yeah, over the summer. I mean, I know we don't really get a summer here, but yeah, I'm a huge fan of ants, especially. I mean, it's a bit different now because you seem to be able to get them year round, but certainly going back sort of 4 or 5 years in the centre, it was pretty hard to get ants year round in Bogota. So yeah, no, I like it.
Okay. Just to mention that Paola's got in touch with us and has said, guys, do drop us a line in terms of food that you like here, or something that you've tried in Colombia that you'd never heard of before and you absolutely love it or you hate it. And if you're Colombian, maybe you know a few hidden gems that we don't know about. Exactly. We would like to hear about them because we want to try everything, except I'm not a big fan of organs, but we're coming to that. But Paula is telling us about empanadas. Yeah, I like the empanadas. That's something we're going to touch on a little bit later on. But yeah, you were saying, Oliver, that you have...
go on.
Yeah, you have one that you...
Yeah, I've got a last one for you. And again, we'll talk about regional specialities a little bit later. What about guinea pigs on a stick?
Well, in Colombia, I've never tried them. But where was it? I think I was heading off to do the Inca Trail back in early 2009, and we stopped at a restaurant, and it was one of those meat serving restaurants that we get all the various meat cuttings, and the guinea pig was available. So I did try, but I didn't. You see, I think I would eat any meat if I don't see it, as in.
See the
I saw
animal.
its little leg, the animal, and it was horrible. So I give a little quick story. I remember we were in Mauritius when my sisters got married there years ago, and my mother ordered scampi because she loves scampi, the scampi that you buy in the supermarket, already, with breadcrumbs on it and neatly packaged and stuff like that. And it looks lovely. She gets her scampi with all the big feet or whatever you call them hanging out of this crustacean thing. And she said, "What? I didn't order this." And so, "Well, that's scampi." She couldn't eat it then. So I'm going to like that. I mean, if somebody just gave me the meat of the guinea pig without seeing its little feet fried, I'd probably eat
forget
it.
that. The head. I mean, the head with eyes.
Yeah.
No, that was, I mean, I have to say, I found it was like eating a massive piece of crackling. just unbelievably greasy. It was almost like it didn't want to be eaten, which, seems odd. But Brendan, as you said, I mean, why would you not want to be eaten? Doesn't make sense. We've got a number of comments coming through. There's one here from Paula Andrea Perez that you mentioned earlier, Brendan. No, as you said, she was talking about empanadas. Now, here's a debate for you, straight from Paula. We never get tired of empanadas, fried or baked. Well, where do you stand on that one? Fried or baked? How do you prefer your empanadas?
Well, I rarely have them baked because I tend to eat them on the street. So there's two empanada sellers on the street that have them baked, because especially if you're only getting them from Mil Pesos or whatever. But I have had them baked, and obviously, I'm guessing for health reasons and taste, they are better.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah, I got a wonderful, I have to say. Now, maybe it was just because I was famished at the time, but I was in La Perseverancia, that old barrio down there in between La Macarena and Parque Nacional. I went down for the first time in months, and I ended up having to do a bit of work. But the landlady of the tienda of my good friend Fernando, Gladys, she gave me a couple of empanadas that she makes herself, and they were delicious, like stuffed right with meat. Because sometimes you get those.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
apologetic.
Yeah. There might be it might have kind of seen meat at once in its life, but there's no meat at all in it. But these were stuffed with chicken, and the other one had meat and like really stuffed. So I had to give her my compliments on those. But like in terms of street food, and I think it was what's his name, Anthony Bourdain, am I right? Like he had said, underappreciated street food, and yeah, you get a lot of bad quality street food here. And I know some people. I used to an Israeli friend here, and he'd tell me, "Oh, Brendan, you're not eating food off the street here. Like you're going to pick up all sorts of infections and stuff." But I'm pretty relaxed about that, and you can get some decent empanada stalls for sure.
Oh yeah, no, I think your friend is bang wrong there. An empanada off the street is a treat in any condition in Bogota. I have to say though, I much prefer the baked empanadas to the properly fried, greasy. And I don't really like the corn ones. I prefer the kind of wheaty ones much better. Ironically, I do much prefer fried arepas. I'll be honest, whenever the whole paisa boyacense or paisa arepa debate comes up, I have to say, paisa arepas best used as frisbees. Boyacense arepas, I would say, maybe good sound insulation if you tape them to your wall. Not something I'd go out of my way to eat if avoidable. Just unbelievable chewing. There's nothing in there. I find it very odd. It's very similar to a pupusa in Central America, but for some reason without being stuffed. Now, coming to that, my two different arepas that I do like very much, Cali, because cut the arepa open, put things in the middle, fantastic. Why wouldn't you do that? I don't get not a bit of apologetic cheese on the top, but like a properly stuffed arepa, great stuff. And then of course arepa de huevo on the coast, delicious, absolutely delicious.
100% agree. Like as somebody said, I mean, it's a bit like saying with an arepa. I mean, do you like bread, like a basic bread? I mean, it should be used as a kind of sandwich thing. And in fairness,
yes.
You mentioned Cali there. I was actually in Venezuela before I ever got to Cali. And it was in Venezuela, in Merida, where I came across like, oh, this is what you should do with arepas. I know I won't be popular saying this with the match tomorrow, but it was like, oh, the Venezuelans like actually made proper stuffed arepas. They were like eating hamburgers. They came with everything. It was a right proper meal. So yeah, it depends what you put in them. A lot of the time they can be just pretty bland. I remember being in Finlandia a few years ago, and it was like every second house sold just your very plain arepas like the ones you'd buy in Exito, the Exito brand oregano.
Oh God, yes.
And just a bit
The
of butter
little
and salt.
hockey pucks.
Yeah,
Like little fucking hockey pucks. Why? I just and you know the thing that really amazes me about this when we're talking about carbohydrates, Brendan, is this is the country that invented the potato. I don't understand how you could invent potatoes and therefore chips, and then think, no, I want my snack food to be a really dry, tastes of nothing corn arepa. So very starchy, there's nothing really in it. Because you have chips. And I mean, I know people have, you know, we're talking about street food now, salchipapa. Can't beat a salchipapa.
Yeah.
I mean, exactly. Comfort food-wise, that's fantastic.
Yeah, well, and I do, I in terms of, in the same kind of style as your arepa de huevo, the pasteles, or not the papas rellenas, I should say, and then you can get the yuca as well. Things I like. There's actually a stand-up in my neck of the woods here in Verbenal, and they do a nice papa rellena with minced meat inside it. And there's no rice. I don't like when they do a papa rellena with rice. Leave the rice out of it. It's a papa.
Yeah, don't mix your carbohydrates. Colombians love mixing carbohydrates, I've noticed. You know, it's not unusual to see plantain and rice and arepa and maybe even potatoes as well on a single plate. I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, and just on that particular point, I remember writing a blog story in El Tiempo a few years ago about this and getting a bit of criticism about Colombia's battle with the bulge, is what I was calling it. Is that, like, you know, as countries move to more sedentary lifestyles, you could see where Colombia might have a weight problem, a bit like their neighbors to the north here in North America, as in the Yanks, because of all the carbohydrates they eat. And you're kind of going, you've got a country full of lovely fresh fruit and vegetables. Use more of the vegetables in your cooking. But you know, the standard kind of almuerzo corrientazo, I think they're getting more imaginative since I've been here over almost the last decade, that those things are improving. But like, yeah, back in the day, as you say, you'd have your yuca, papas, arroz, and then they go, do you want pasta with that as well?
Yeah. That's utterly bizarre. I know, and I think you're right. I mean, I find it bizarre. I mean, the hills around here are fantastic for growing vegetables, but yeah, you don't see so much vegetables in traditional food. And even, you know, when I visited friends' houses or when they're WhatsApping their meal table, there's often a massive lack of vegetables. You know, plenty of meat. So, Brendan, shall we talk about regional specialities?
Yeah, well, maybe just before we get on to that, Ollie, do we want to just take in a few of the comments, because I like.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I was going to bring that in. So, we mentioned cuy earlier, and Alex Cortez writes in to say, if we eat the head of a cuy in Pasto, it's said that you'll never leave, so time to be careful with that one. Maybe that's a clue to decapitate the head, put it to one side, and that way you'll be able to take a bus out.
Well, maybe I want to stay in Pasto when I'm there. You know, they're having a go at the Pastusos. They're always the butt of the jokes.
That's very true. And you know, and I have to say, I've always liked Pastusos, very solidly left-wing, very unpretentious city. And Paula Andrea Perez writes in to say that she says the best ajiaco, of course, the local speciality in this region, is allegedly served in the Persi. Have you tried it?
The ajiaco in Le Persi, I actually haven't. I usually go to Le Persi for something else beginning with a P, and it's a liquid. A perico and a poker. Perico cafe, I must hasten to add there. No, I've only eaten a couple of times in the plaza in La Perseveranza, but Fernando's Tienda is right opposite one of the entrances on the 31 as you're going up. People who know, I know this is very Bogotá specific, but you have to call in. It's called Las Panelas, or Panelas, I think is what he has the name, whatever that comes from. But the ajiaco, so we were talking about the regional dishes. Just one thing that Pedro mentioned there, because I don't know if it's linked to the little guinea pig thing, but mojojo caterpillars? Some call it soil shrimp?
Mojojoy.
Mojojoy, okay. Mojojoy, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's
no idea what that is.
That's the Amazonian answer to hormigas colones. Yeah, you get to dig them up and pop them in. If you're especially brave, you can pop them in alive.
Okay.
They're like
that sounds like something from I was going to say it sounds like something from an "I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here" episode where they'd have to eat grub.
Very much. They're kind of little grubby caterpillars. They look very much like if you've ever been fishing. They look not unlike little maggots that you would put on your hook. So okay. I mean, again, I'm a massive fan. Although Amazonas, I think, has some tremendous food. You've got pirarucu, the big fish. You know, your 4-meter long fish. Obviously, you only get a little fillet out of that, but delicious. Piranhas I wouldn't recommend, just very, very bony.
Yeah, okay, that doesn't sound like fun. I don't like the bones in fish. In terms of because with Paula mentioning the ajiaco and La Perseverancia, I'd always thought, or so the story goes, I guess it's mentioned in Lonely Planet, and that's why it's become popular. But there's one of those restaurants just up from the Plaza Bolivar,
which is closed.
Oh, okay.
They finally closed the Puerto Falsa, but now it's the Puerto Cerrada, sadly, because of COVID.
Okay.
I personally, I have to say, I don't think it was that great a place. Up the road a little bit better. Well, let's enrage everybody in Bogota, Brendan, by praising Bandeja Paisa.
Yeah, well, I equate it to a good Irish or English fry up in a sense. Like it's kind of got all those dirty fried kind of meats or whatever, or the fats of meats as well in them. Obviously with an avocado thrown in for good measure, but even the beans, and you get the beans in a British fry up or an Irish fry up. And it's good. Look, it's not the healthiest thing in the world. If you were eating one of them every day, well, you wouldn't want to be getting coronavirus, because I'm sure you wouldn't be in great shape. But yeah, like as a comfort food, it's nice.
I'll give you a free tip for Bandeja Paisa. Anybody that's listening, can be a bit difficult sometimes. The egg kind of runs into the sort of bean sauce. So what you want to do there is get your sausage, possibly a morcilla, use it as a kind of breakwater to stop the eggs and the beans mixing. I mean, you may want to mix them, but that's your decision. Don't.
Sounds like you need a degree in engineering to do that.
But yeah, no, Bandeja Paisa, I think, not maybe as great as its reputation, but again, great hangover food.
Exactly, yeah. Comfort food. But
we were talking about the hormigas earlier. I mean, I've got to say, I think Santander has a really good shout for best regional food in Colombia. Amazon puts in a strong bid. I think Santander might be the winner.
Well, I mean, what do they? Why basically? What are you putting to the top of the list?
Goats is the key one. You've got goats, cabras, fantastic. Start off with a big sort of barbecued goat. Can't go wrong with goat. I find it disappointing that often riding my bicycle around, in the outskirts of Bogota, I see lots of sheeps walking about, and they just use them to make ruanas. Very hard to get a sheep onto your plate. But in Santander, those goats are most definitely ending up on your plate, and they are delicious. And then there's pepitoria, which is kind of like an open haggis.
I've never had it.
Yeah, it's great. You should definitely. There's a couple of good Santander restaurants in Bogota. Pepitoria, absolutely fantastic, like an open fried haggis, and it's absolutely delicious. All the sort of innards and guts that you could want, plus rice to give it a bit of texture.
But I mean, so it's got all the organs and stuff in it. 'Cause that's not
I don't know, not all of them, but there's various pieces of viscera in there.
Yeah. See, that's not my favorite meat. I don't, especially if it's very chewy. I'm not a big fan of it. But I'll give anything a go once. Because like the other thing is talking about kind of, well, maybe more disgusting foods, but you get a soup with the hen's feet in it, and things like that. I couldn't eat that if I see the hen's foot sticking out of the soup. Have you ever had that?
No? I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to. No, I haven't seen chicken feet in a soup here. That sort of reminds me of China more.
I have seen it here. And then there's in Palikemau, isn't there that famous soup that you're meant to get with the bull's testicles in it?
The usual kind of macho thing, yeah.
Never had it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'd be open to. I mean, I've got to say, I quite like organs and bone marrow and blood and whatnot. And we've got Paula Perez again here. She's asking what we think of morcilla, and I would definitely say massive, massive, massive fan of dried blood in a sausage. I think it's great, absolutely great. I mean, I love black pudding at home, and I find having a little bit of rice in the morcilla gives it a lot more texture. I think it's a good addition.
I don't know. I've just never found one that does it for me because I like black pudding, like our side of the world as well. But the morcilla here, I'm always kind of left. There's some kind of strange taste to it that just doesn't agree with me. Because I've had it in Barrio Egipto during Festival de los Reyes, and I basically had it all over the place. But it just, I'm always left a bit disappointed with it, and tend to not bother touching it if it's on a plate. I'll try and eat the proper meat. Never really got into it that much. By the way, Pedro is telling us that Santandriana has the best arepa. Well,
see, I think they're on for the win here. Yeah, I really do. I mean, the Llanos is good.
What's the Santandriana arepa? I mean, what do they put in it?
I don't remember it being anything special, to be honest. I mean, Pedro, write in. Tell us what makes it so special. You've got 5 minutes. If you can explain to us why it's such a fantastic thing, we'll be dead in for it. What about the Llanos, though, Mamon? I mean, you're talking about meat, Brendan. Surely the meat lover, the carnivore exquisite, has to be going to the Llanos. The Llanos of Colombia, masses of meat.
It's cowboy country, exactly. I mean, that's where you got to do it. What can I say? It's just good old proper meat. You're not going to be getting any kind of, well, in my experience, no special delicacy, but it's just good old proper beef.
Oh yeah, no. Hang on. What about chigüeros? The capybaras, the big, back to eating rodents again. Giant rodent friends. They're about the size of a Labrador.
Never had them.
You've never?
Where?
Brendan, I am shocked. What is this? 8 years in Colombia now?
9 actually, but
mate, come on. You've been mugging yourself for the last 9 years. Look, nearly a decade. You have to rectify it. Honestly, it's a fantastic meat. Absolutely fantastic.
As I said, I may have had it in Peru. There's a lot of things that I forget, that I probably did. But then I become very kind of stuck in my ways, regimented in a sense, a routine that I follow. But anyway, okay, it's on the list. But we're talking about regional foods, and I know we're running out of time because, I know you're a big fan of the costeña food on both coasts, Pacific and Caribbean. I mean, fish. I like fish. If you like fish, then you'll get good grub on either coast. But you've again the Pacific coast. Well, I've been obviously, but probably not the connoisseur that you have been.
Coconuts. Lots of coconuts. Nothing. I struggle to think of anything that doesn't taste better with coconuts. I would happily put coconut in my coffee in the morning.
Yeah,
I think.
I'm
Come on, what can you think of? What can you possibly think of that coconut doesn't improve? Beef
Well, you see,
Wellington with coconut, brilliant.
again, running out of time, but quickly. I remember my brother was studying home economics years ago. No, I was about maybe 7 or 8, or one of my siblings anyway. And they cooked coconut mice, and they had this coloring on them, this pink coloring. And I ate maybe 2 of them. They were rather big, and I vomited profusely afterwards for a long, long time. Anyway, so even though now I can eat coconut, but that's still stuck in my mind. So coconut wouldn't be my first kind of fruit or whatever you call it to go. It is a fruit.
Well, what about big? It's complicated, I think, and I can't remember exactly what it is off the top of my head. What about big juicy prawns? Would that get you going?
Yeah. Like when it comes to fish, I pretty much eat anything, except periwinkles, like little snail things. Not, but like crustaceans and things like that. Yeah, I can. But why?
The Pacific's really good for that because the waters are a lot colder than the Caribbean, which means you get kind of bigger, tastier seafood. You know, you get those little tiny lobsters in the Caribbean, which are also great. I think a 30,000 peso lobster is fantastic value. No one can deny that. Okay. But we've got an answer here from Pedro Albarracin. He says the reason Santanderiana arepas are the way forward is, and I know this is going to be popular with you, Brendan, powdered chicharron.
Is Pedro reading my mind? Because I was going to say we haven't mentioned my favorite little snack in Colombia. Again, not to be plugging my timber blog, but I wrote a story a few months ago saying, revealing my Colombian addiction. And of course, it read as if I was talking about something else. But at the end came the punchline that it was pan chicharrona, right, just fresh out of the oven. Yeah. It's excellent. But by the way, I'm guessing Pedro is a Santanderiano, surely. I'd be surprised if he's like a Pastuso and talking up Santander. But anyway, I must try those because if they have the chicharron flavor, then I like them. Because my pan chicharronas pretty much every morning. They've sustained me in these pandemic days. My comfort food these days. But yeah, because kind of the way to finish up on that as well, like the panaderias here, when it comes, like they're 10 a penny on every street. They're everywhere. So you were saying to me the other day that like Colombians say, oh, we're not big wheat eating people, but it's like you've got panaderias everywhere, and everybody goes in and buys their meal de pan or dos meal de pan or whatever. You won't get much for meal de pan these days. But speaking of which, I actually have a bag of bread right beside me here that I just got.
Wow, that's wow! I didn't. I mean, it's a bit late for bread, isn't it? Oh no, Pedro's a Rolo. You were bang wrong with that one.
I'm sure he's got Santanderiana blood in him somewhere. I'm pretty sure of it.
Everyone in Bogotá is not from Bogotá. If we go back far enough, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Probably right on that one. We're actually now fast running out of time here. Yeah, next week, Ollie, I'm going to give you the call on that one because we were meant to put pick a topic out of our hat. So I'm going to pick one out of your hair.
There's lots of it.
What are we doing next week?
Well, let's do numbers in Colombia. No, what about sport? Do you think we could go with that one? We spend a lot of time talking about sports news every week. There's a lot to cover there. We've got Tejo, we've got Polirana, we've got obviously football. I think sport could be a nice little topic for us there.
Sport it is. Excellent. Okay, Ollie, we better leave it there. Talk to you next week, guys. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
oh, oh.